Jesus, you're all that I want. I am resting here in your arms. Everything I'll ever need is in your presence. Your love is all that I need, and I found it there in your heart. Isn't too hard to see, it's nothing better. It isn't too hard to see. It's nothing better. It's nothing better.
Welcome to Journey to Service. I'm William Laddick, and once again, we're in week number 50, in fact, 50th straight show. And I'm very proud to once again welcome Randall Earl Kaiser back to the show. Randall, how are you, my good man?
Great, brother. 5-0. I like that number. 5 is kind of cool.
Yeah, we're not even in Hawaii, so that's definitely saying something, 5-0, right on, man.
Right on, brother.
So
we're gonna have some fun today. You're gonna
have some fun. Oh, really? Okay. What do you have in store? What are you thinking?
Well, time to open up a little bit more on stories, we're all I shared a video with you the other day from Neville Goddard, and he was one of my first authors that I read, and then I got into Wallace Wattles, and these guys were in the early 1900s, this is old stuff, but real simple stuff, talking about how, we're really just simply creating our own reality based on our imagination. And, our ability to imagine things. And then once we imagine something, then our ability to sell it, to get somebody to help us create it or co-create it, And most stuff that we're creating has already been created at one point in history, no matter what. We've all been, deceived into what history is. We know that now. There's so many people who have that in these last couple of years have gotten into it and said, holy shit, how much layers of deception has been going on, And it all came down to a very small group of people that I refer to as New World Order, call them Nazis, call them Khazarian Mafia. Everybody's got their name for this small group of people who really had no care, that manifested this whole idea of corporation. And then we bought into all this stuff, okay? So, it's not like anybody is to blame for this. We have to look at this in a very big perspective and say, look at, the corporation is obviously an uncaring, dead entity. Its only mission is profit, okay? The corporation. The people that are involved in it can either choose to just stay with those corporate profit and increase rules, or they can be loving, and love is the word I'm going to use. Instead of all bunch of words, we'll just keep it simple today. So, the whole idea of love is what's lacking in the lack mentality corporation world, because it's not us that lacks, it is the corporation that lacks. And we got caught into the belief of lack when there's really nothing but abundance and love.
Wow. Throw you a little bone and you come back with a whole dinosaur. That's great. That was awesome. All kinds of cool stuff there that we're going to, dig into and chew on for sure, because there's a lot to chew on. I wanted to just quickly say that Randall shared a video of one of the chapters of one of the books he just mentioned with me yesterday. And you can tell it's definitely a little bit older English style, but it was really fascinating. When I watched the video, I realized that we are our own genies. We have the ability to imagine and create anything we want, anything. And you just have to, this is what I was getting from the video I was watching, is we just have to remember who we are, powerful beings that can create anything, hold whatever thoughts we want in our minds with belief, with faith, and it can create. Now, of course, there are steps and there are things that have to occur. Actions sometimes need to be taken, but sometimes they don't. And sometimes they aren't as what you might expect. But it was just a really cool reminder for me to watch it and say, okay, you know, I can choose to feel defeated or down or depressed because, you know, we're being forced to do things that we think we don't want to do, or, you know, that kind of thing, or that we're powerless, or that we don't have any ability to change our environment, our lifestyle, the decisions we make, the actions we take, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the book reminded me, no, you might believe that, you know, right now, but you don't have to hold that belief. You don't have to keep that belief. So I found it fascinating. So I'm happy to share that that video with other people. So I'll put the link in the description below. But I know that you have a lot of reflections that you have, like just things that you've held in your past. I wanted to ask you one question though, before we start going into the memory lane a little bit. And that is just on that very theme that I've talked about, creating your own reality based on what you hold strongest in your mind, whether that's conscious or subconscious. And Randall, I was even saying this to you last week. I was really impressed with how strongly you've held your vision all this time, you know, through the last 2 years, which has been very difficult for some people in many different ways. And yet you've always said, you know, we've got this, we've won, even though I don't think you use the word win as in like win, lose, but it's sort of like, yeah, things are changing. We're not going back to the way things used to be. We are in transition. And you've held that very strongly and confidently, I might add too. So is there anything you'd like to say about that, and even to perhaps encourage the viewers that are watching this that maybe aren't feeling as strong in their thoughts about what the world is now and what the world can be?
Well, you know, it's the simplicity, right? And I like these older books, like I said, because there was simplicity before the complexity, right? And as Oliver Wendell Holmes says, I couldn't give a fig for the simplicity on the near side of complexity, but I'd give my life for the simplicity on the far side of complexity. So we're reaching that point of simplifying life once again, you know, that we asked for to be complex, okay? And when I say that, you know, it was easy for a small group of old men who, you know, wanted to control the world in the New World Order during and after World War II. And in fact, World War II never ended. It's ending now, but it just continued on. That one battle for the minds of man, okay? Minds of men and women. That's what World War II was. And it just continued until now, until we got to this point where we said, wait a minute, why are we fighting? Like, what's going on here? Like, is there a reason for war at all? You know, is there a reason for any of this? Or was there always this battle going on in our minds, just simply in our minds, for that complexity, for trying to discover, trying to figure it out, you know, trying to solve the problems and everything else, when the problem solving is right within. And those of us, and I'll say us when I say this, because there's thousands of us out there now who've discovered that God is within, that the goodness, the love is all within. There is no external deity going to come and save us. Does that mean there's no God? God, no. There's God in everyone and everything every day. There's goodness in everyone and everything every day. There's love in everyone and everything every day. And if we seek that, it's so easy to find. It's peace. It's just nothingness. It's going into yourself and saying, just stop thinking about all of the exterior things, the complexities, the, stories that people have come up with over the years, and especially over the years that we've been here as living men and women on the land. Very complex stories, my God, technology stories and everything else that gets us spinning and gets us thinking, oh, what can we do with this? And co-creating things like computers and technology that mostly, in fact, 90% of people that think in those realms of technology are thinking how they can get something out of it, in a profit sense, in a corporate mindset, rather than using technology to spread love, like what we do on Facebook and YouTube. And where we've turned the corner, in my mind, for humanity is by using the technology to share love and to share goodness and share good stories, rather than the complex stories of war and, who's doing this and who's to blame for that. And my God, we can come up with some stuff. And we need to take responsibility for that ourselves. Instead of asking for someone else to show us the way, go inside. It's so much easier. And inside is where love lies and grace lies and peace lies. It's just, it's just too simple. And then take that with you into whatever it is you do, whether you're a banker like I am, knowing and seeing the abundance and the outright sheer abundance is the only word, okay, that I can come up with. And then trying to say to myself, okay, you're going to have to go forget about that thought, Kaiser. Go back to your, limited mentality. Oil and gas are limited and gold is limited and silver is limited. That's why the values are the way they are. Bullshit. I will never go back to that kind of ridiculous, limited corporate mentality thinking. And it doesn't matter how many stories people come up with and share with me or show me or whatever. My God, just simplify it. There's nothing but abundance, and we are the value. We put the value on anything, whether it's ourselves or whether it's some kind of medium of exchange, some kind of currency. We're the ones that are doing that. And it's unlimited. If you are a living man and woman on the land, not a corporate entity.
All right. Well, you mentioned the word stories in there a number of times, and I kind of like to go down memory lane a little bit, at least for Randall Kaiser, and your journeys to this point. You were at a different point, I'm sure, a year, 2 years, 3 years ago. And you talk about it a little bit in your book, of course, too. But you mentioned to me before we started the show that you even mentioned some names that I didn't realize that you've kind of rubbed elbows with. Benjamin Fulford, or Ben Fulford, is one name that you mentioned. So I'd like to know more about that. You've obviously talked about Kim Gagowan and a few other folks. So tell us some of the situations and experiences and stories of things and encounters you had with some of those folks, if you don't mind.
Sure, let's do that. We'll go down the list. What did we call the book? The Death is an Illusion book. And we'll start from, back when I discovered this whole idea of abundance. Okay, that was where there was no turning back. And it started with me meeting a man from Vancouver, a Filipino man who claimed special power, special irrevocable power of attorney over a fund called the Cruzan Philippine Fund. Okay, these numerous funds were set up like this by the man named Ferdinand Marcos. Marcos was a family member, royal families around the world, okay? There's many of them and they still exist. And these royal families are the aliens, if you want to call them that, because they don't function in our world. They function in their own reality, which when I discovered and got into, I realized how fearful and how fearful that reality of theirs is. And a lot of it was based on, years prior when, people like the Romanov family, Nicky Romanov and his family were murdered. And at that point in time, we made a big switch over from the royal families, the kingdoms, the empires, into these governments, into these corporate entities. And why was that? Well, it was out of fear. These royal families did not want to have the same fate. No matter what their decisions that they made or whatever, they didn't want that same fate. They didn't want their families to be murdered like Nicky Romanov and his family. So that was when a big switch happened. But what I'm getting at is that these royal families, like the Romanovs and numerous royal families around the world, a lot of them genetically and ancestrally related to Jesus Christ and his brother, Andrew, being Mary's two children, Mary's two boys, Mother Mary, and the grandmother of those two boys. Simple stories like that I've come to know, and know that a lot of us are related to the same families because we're just the people, so to speak. We're not, designated in any of these royal families, and we haven't had the funding capabilities to trace our DNA. But does that mean we're not related? Of course we are. The population at the time when Jesus Christ and Mary walked on the earth, or take another story, like if you don't like the Jesus and Mary story and their ancestors, go back a few more thousand years to similar stories like that, okay? Where there was some kind of a reset and there was these, man and a woman who started again, so to speak. It's all about that starting again story. And therefore, the DNA and the genetic heritage is not as important as starting again with that Christ conscious I am complex that we are as loving, living men and women on the land, and then starting again. We could start the story right now. I'm a little too old to have a child with somebody, but like I started it with my kids. And then it's just keeping on that same story, that natural, loving family story, which a lot of these royal families lacked. And I have so much compassion for them because they were so busy concerning themselves with pageantry and, tradition and things like that, that the lack in the children was there. And that I see it with almost every member of royal families that I've been involved with. And there's a number of them that I have. They all have kind of a separation anxiety problem with, because they didn't have that close, loving, motherly, feminine, nurturing aspect in their lives. It's really sad. And I feel for them. They're just people like us. There's no difference. It's just the difference is in that family structure that was built on blame, shame, and guilt, like our friend Ida talks about sometimes, and then it got driven into even our structure to a certain extent, unless you were as fortunate as William and I to have loving mothers like we have and loving fathers like we had, or I had, you have still. And then you really can feel that, know that love that our parents had for us, and then see how that lacked in not only the royal families, but in so many families out there in the world, that we've seen so much separation and divorce and fighting and legal jurisdiction, mine, ownership. Oh my God, it's just tore the society to bits. It tore, okay? But now that mending is happening, that rising, that rose, that lovely feminine aspect of society, that nurturing love that's coming to the surface now. Again, finally, thank God. And it's coming in us, the men who refused to say, I'm gonna die for this. I'm a soldier. I'm gonna die for this. I don't care, I'll die for my nation. Bullshit. We're here to love for our nation. We're here to show our love and show our gentleman spirit. It's just, it's time. And that spirit didn't have to just come in gentlemen like yourself and myself. And I'm not saying I'm perfect. My God, I go through stuff too. And this last couple of years, trying to stay out of the blame game, when you see such corruption and such deliberate censorship and everything else going on, was it difficult for me to stay out of that? Damn rights it was. But now that we've gotten through it, all we can do is just now love and realize why that had to happen too. It had to happen to lift us back into that space of love. I'm really going on. Sorry, brother.
That's okay. I was thinking he's on a good tangent here, but what we were asking you about was going down memory lane a little bit and talking about, and this is what you said was perfect, because it just kind of set everything up for, the mentality, for the trip, for the challenges that you experienced. And along the way, you met different people, you had different connections. Tell us about some of those.
Yeah, so I was started with that man in Vancouver who showed me this huge abundance, right? Showed me the gold-backed certificates and whatnot that are from ancient asset-backed holdings, okay, I'll call them, without saying the word accounts, because it was Marcos who brought a lot of these accounts into the banking system, okay, off ledger, but into the banking system. There's still tons and tons and tons of it. And through my experience in my travels, not only to the Philippines, but into Jakarta, I was this close to seeing the ultimate hordes of it that are not even anywhere near the banking system, that are just held, that are just holdings. And most of the time, as I said, are in the hands of people who spiritually have been passed on these rights, okay? And spiritually in all different kind of religious aspects, from the Muslim religions to Christian religions, and the Orthodox to the non-Orthodox Christian religions, like people who have a spiritual bent and are supposed to be thinking in terms of humanity, and most do, okay, because they know that this is not theirs. This is hordes from ancient history. There's abundance from ancient history, and they are the keepers. So I'm separating those people from the capitalists who made a lot of money in the last, since World War II, under this globalist agenda, from commodities, whether that be oil and gas or even gold that was mined, in the period of time between then and now and then, or, but the ancient assets is what I talk about. And there's not that many people talk about this stuff. And I don't know why, it's just, Karen Hudez, there was like a Swiss Indo story. There's like Neil Keenan, Kim Gagone is an example. And, Ben Fulford talks about it, as I said. But never to the extent of saying, can you just realize how abundant it is, how unlimited, how we just separate ourselves from that word limited, that corporate mentality word, and all of a sudden the world is ours to create with? And, you know, I love the GPMS people, don't get me wrong. Like I've said this numerous times. What they talk about is separate from all of that, separate from the idea of any commodities. Well, how on earth can we do that when on earth, mankind has done that throughout numerous civilizations? Doesn't matter what civilization you look at, you'll see shiny things, okay? You'll see, you know, people putting value on shiny things. And that's how our monetary system has always been. So the idea of just saying the human is the value, well, that's where we got to with the credit system. Only we hid the idea of who the value is. So this is why I love the idea of GPMS, because it's saying, okay, if we're the value, if it's our agreement on the GPMS document, I don't know if they call it an autograph or a signature, but if it's the human agreement that agrees to a GPMS monetary system, they call it monetary, then they're just saying, let the humans decide, because we are the value. So I'm not arguing any of that ever. And I'll say, fine, we had the opportunity to do that with the credit system that we have right now. Just tell the truth of who the creditors are. Anna von Reitz is such a beautiful writer that talks about this kind of stuff, but she'll mix in the idea of the assets as well. So there's nothing wrong with what we've got. Let's just build with it and take that story of the abundant energy, frequency, radiance, vibration, and currency of God, which is your own energy, frequency, radiance, vibration, and currency. That is you. That's your vibrating energy. And then add to it the precious treasure and resources of Mother Earth, and build with both those things in an honest, you know, loving, harmonious manner, with good for everyone and everything on our minds, and do no harm on the project side. We're not going to build any more weapons. We don't need weapons. My God, we've had enough of that. We need to build communities and systems that, you know, are natural and loving and nurturing. And we've got all of that. We can do all of this stuff if we get ourselves out of the corporate mentality, if we take responsibility for our bodies, our minds, and our spirit, and step up, rather than asking for someone to give us a pill. My God, we've proven it in the last year how many people just simply said, okay, I'll put that thing on my face because it'll save me, right? Or I'll take that thing in the arm, or I'll take a pill or whatever because it'll save me, right? Looking outside to some external source to say, yeah, don't worry, it'll save you. God. You know, so we can't. Go ahead.
Sorry, Randall. I'm just wondering if you had any specific experiences or stories with any of the folks that you had that kind of ties into what you just shared. Was there, for example, was there any experience with Kim Gagoan that made you realize that, you know, brought you closer to the concept that you believe in now, which is we are all powerful and have the ability to create anything. So why not create something magical and something wonderful where mankind is working with each other rather than against each other? Do you have any experiences like that you can share?
Yeah, and I mean, you know, this past week, Anna von Reitz has been posting some stuff, and I wrote to her. You know, she hasn't responded, but she knows where my mind is when it comes to this simplicity, right? Anna and I are close, and it's probably, you know, I look up to her as much as anybody in this world of money or credit currency, whatever you want to call it, the medium of exchange, because she does comprehend it at a similar state as I do. So in this last week, 2 more names came up, Ben Fulford and Kim Gagosian. And now please, I'm not here to judge them or anybody else. If you choose to believe what they're saying, that's up to you. And it's not my place to judge them or say that their stories are wrong or right. Kim's got a good heart. Ben Fulford has a good heart. They want humanity to see freedom and peace and love. So, if you're thinking I'm judging Kim by explaining that her story, then please just, delete my channel, because I'm not here to judge anybody. I'm here to talk about things and to expose my story. So let's get into what Kim talks about. Like, she'll actually talk about aliens walking amongst us like I do. But I think she, authentically believes, because she's watched too many freaking sci-fi movies, that these are some kind of beings from somewhere else. They're not just humans like us. So when I say the word alien, I'm talking about alien to our world being a human construct, not Mother Earth. So that world of man is a human construct. And these people that I talk about that I consider aliens are the royal family members, or those of us who have discovered the ridiculous notion of government and the ridiculous, corporate mindset, and said, I don't want any part of that world. I want to be in the world of love and compassion. I guess that's a word I could use, but so that's one thing that I see in her, and I see her eyes when she's talking about it, and I don't see authenticity. I think it's just a story she's trying to make up to get people wrapped into her reality, okay? Which is what we're all trying to do, don't get me wrong. And again, I'm not saying it's wrong what she's doing, because there are thousands and millions of people who've bought into the idea of, as we were talking just prior to the show, Jerry Lewis, watched a little movie of his from the 60s. And this is me again, going back to the oldies, but he came down to Earth in this little tiny spacecraft and opened the door on the bottom, and he was wandering around with the people for a little while. It was like even a simpler Mork and Mindy story is what it was. I don't even know what the name of the movie was. But my God, where did we take it from there? Where did our imaginations allow to run from the Matrix? I mean, my God, everybody wants to talk about the Matrix being the truth. It is the ultimate movie. That is telling exactly the truth. You ever watched that thing? My God, like these animal creatures in pods and freaking shit connected to them. There's no nature in that. I mean, but it is the ultimate story. Holy catfish. And I mean, there's been way more complex stories than that when it comes to outer space and flying through space and other galaxies and, gray things with black eyes and big exploded heads. That all started with Star Trek and that little green guy that they had on there, or maybe Bugs Bunny, I don't know. But, again, we're doing that. We're creating that reality with our imaginations, which is great. And I'm not running it down. If you want to run with that story, fine. My story is so much simpler, and it's based on that simple abundance of assets, and then the simplicity of the human being, the living man and woman on the land. And those two simple things. And I don't divert from it. And if someone wants to talk about other things, you're welcome. Go run with whatever story you want, Kim Gagosian, and Star Space Force this and fucking satellites. And oh my God, We live on a flat, motionless plane that we can't get out of. You know, we don't have the technology to leave it, and we function within it. That is the simplicity that I speak, and I've spoken from day one. People can come down on me, oh, whatever, Kaiser, you flat earth, you're limiting your mind. No, I'm not. I'm not limiting anything. I'm talking and speaking from a reality that I believe in and that I want to expose to the world. One that is based on love, one that is based on biblical stuff, you know? So I kind of got off track, but I'll just like go back to Kim for a minute there and say that between her and Ben, they had this conversation. Anna obviously listened to it, or part of it, which I did too, a little bit of it. Somebody shared it with me, so I watched a few minutes of it, which I usually do, a few minutes of things to just keep my mind open, if you want to call it that, to what other people are doing. But it, you know, the part of that story that Kim goes off on is that she's the one, you know, with this Russian family account, okay? Bullshit, you know? I'm sorry, Kim, but you're not the one for the whole world. Are there numerous royal family accounts that have the same capacity to change the world because they're all so abundant? Hell yes. So don't let me hold you back from telling people your story, Kim, and from Ben Fulford grabbing onto it. If he did, I don't know. I think he just kind of, you know, he's a pretty sly character and he wants people to just expose themselves, is what I think he did. And then I only watched a little bit of it, but I think he did expose her inauthentic dream world that she, you know, tries to portray to everyone else. So again, run with it if you like. But what I ran with was, okay, Anna said this, okay, about that and about others. The Philippine story, the royal heritage family, including Marcos, who was more of a fiduciary than had any power, put some basic funds into the Federal Reserve banking system originally, okay? And then that fraction expanded to where the USD and the United States became this superpower of the world, a mental superpower and a military superpower, okay? So they had this capacity. So what does that sound like to you when I say that? A mental and a physical military superpower. Doesn't that sound like Nazis to you? Because that's what it is. And they took this fractional reserve and then they jumped on it with this new world order that it's just infiltrates over time. This mentality of the corporation, we can take advantage of any situation and manipulate and exploit any situation to keep some kind of a new world order in line. And that's what these governments of the world have been doing since World War II. So when Anna says that, what we've done and what I see happening is that not only did that Philippine account shift, okay, I believe it was 2017, when the Federal Reserve System, and this was, think about some other integrating things going on here. That was when Donald Trump was in position, right? In a position where he was making some moves, okay? Making some moves to lead us back and help us back into this understanding. And has he stopped? I don't believe he has. Does he tell the whole truth? No. But I still think that Donald Trump has a place in this story because of that happening in 2017, when the banks, rather than the Federal Reserve, now were exposing that these deposits from these ancient and, you know, Marcos accounts that have been brought into the banking system. Again, don't forget, we're talking about assets that came into the banking system off ledger. I'm not talking about the hoards and the piles that Kim doesn't even want to mention, or anybody doesn't even want to mention, that are nowhere near the banking system and haven't been for, you know, our lifetime and many more, just sitting. But that amount that came into these accounts was now distributed in a different way. And these gold-backed certificates, of which I've seen oodles of them, okay? Assays, measurements of gold that have come into the system off ledger. They are in the banking system now, not in the hands of the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve run by this Nazi New World Order. No longer do they have that capacity. Are they grasping to legal jurisdiction control? Of course they have been. That's why the pharmaceutical industry and this and everything else, that oil and gas, you name it, any commodity that they can make money off of, they're going to try and grasp and hold on and cling to that so-called power that they once had. But it's gone. And it's gone in so many ways. The other currencies, the cryptocurrencies that have come into play, the mindset of humanity to say we're never going to be controlled by the central system anymore. A centralized banking system, a centralized pharmaceuticalism system, a centralized war machine. We're not going to be controlled by that. Humanity's gone far past that. So, you know, again, I'm not here to run down what Kim and Ben were talking about, but I am here to support what Anna supports. And that is that there is this big amount that was shifted into the banking system. She wrote a letter to JP Morgan Chase, to the CEO, who's Jamie Dimon, and then another high official. Whether they respond or not in a written sense doesn't matter. They know as well that things have changed and that those funds are now available for humanity, not for the corporate governments. And we are a part of that, okay? The royal family that I deal with, I saw power of attorney documents this past week that linked back my little coincidental story of my own, okay, to the same fund, the Jose Bautista Cruz fund. I couldn't believe it when I read that. And I thought, okay, what was missing from the other story that I had, that I traveled and was in my hands going in front of the president of the Philippines with, trying to make some headway? What was lacking? Well, the royal family aspect of it was lacking. It was a power of attorney from outside the royal family that I was dealing with. Did he have a good story? Was he a good man? Is he a good man? Yes, of course he is. But when I realized, and when I know, like I've known for a long time now, dealing with these royal family members, that they are the ones that have the capacity to either bring funds off ledger into the banking system, or just continue to sit on them out in the ether world, whatever you want to call it. And so many of them have wanted to bring that in and get past that government blockage for so long, ever since I've been involved in this. And now I can see a clear path. And I could see that path for a long time, because my imagination, my co-creative imagination, saw the abundance and said to myself, we are going to clear a path. We're not going to stop until we do, until those funds reach the people, not through the governments, not through that middleman, not through that central banking system, which is a government, a control center of the mind of the people, a corporate entity that doesn't have the caring, doesn't have the love that the numerous people that I work with in the banking industry have.
I'm just thinking, Randall, just to give you a chance to catch your breath for a second. I was thinking about what you were saying there, as far as a lot of the royal families that many of us don't even know about in sort of the public world, wanting to have humanity, wanting to give humanity some help. And we obviously don't know a lot about that from where we sit, but obviously the governments have kind of gotten in a way of that, or some of the governments, or some of the leaders in the governments, and as well as big corporation, because you mentioned them at the beginning of the show too. And they obviously, found the position for themselves as middlemen, intermediaries, if you will, and I think it blocked a lot of the flow. But as you were sharing all of that, I was thinking too, I feel like there's a spiritual aspect to all of this too, and what I see and hear from many different sources, like just on YouTube, is that mankind is ready but not ready, if you know what I mean. They're ready in the sense of they want something different than what we've had, and they're now starting to awaken. A lot of us who've been asleep are now starting to awaken to realize, oh, maybe we shouldn't rely on governments, and maybe governments aren't as reliable as we once believed. And then again, are we ready as individuals to be abundant beyond measure, to have the kind of abundance that we've never experienced before? And yet it can be found in all of nature. Like, animals are free in all ways, really. They don't need money, but they're abundant in everything else that they have in their environment, and have always been used to that. So they live in an intuitive place, an instinctive place. They work and operate from that, whereas we operate by control and being controlled, like submission and control. So in a sense, what I'm seeing also is there is this shift going on, definitely, that there's no longer the one governing body control, even though they're fighting it like crazy to try to keep that. But humanity, it's almost like we need to be also spiritually ready for it. And we're only now starting to, I think, shift into that. At least that's kind of how I feel. And that's only my perspective. I'm not saying it's truth or not or whatever, but it was a feeling I have. So it's almost like we weren't ready before. And in some ways, I feel like we're in the process of waking up. We're in the process of becoming ready. We're in the process of being able to accept new things and new abundance. So how does that fit into what you just explained, and how does that fit in within your own belief system?
Well, there's stories about the 144,000, which is just a large number to tip the scales. Okay, is the way I look at it. It's 12 tribes, 12 times 12 is 144. We can make all kinds of complex stories out of it, but it's just a large number of people that have accepted the I am consciousness, the idea that we are creating our own reality through our imagination. And that imagination is the unique, and it's not completely unique from other species. Don't get me wrong. Like, when I'm talking about other animals, there are animals that, have it figured out as to how to collectively build things, beehives, for instance, or a beaver dam or something like that, that's good for the collective, right? Instead of just for the survival mode of the individual. So, people have talked about reptilians, right? Well, the reptilian brain is our instinctive aspect of us. It's at the backside of our brain. It's not in our heart. We're love, and the spark of life and the nurturing and the breath all comes from that cardiovascular area, the life. But it's in the brain, and that when we concentrate in that brain area, then we're trying to figure things out. We're not we're not breathing properly. We're judging. We're talking about people as if, oh, they're fucking reptiles and stuff like that. Like, we're all reptiles. We all have that dire desire to survive. It's survival, it's instinct, right? But when you surpass that and know that you have such power and such capacity to be responsible for your own body so that it can live a long time, where you don't have to go into your reptilian brain and, oh, what if I get a cold? I better take a pill. Or what if what if they're right on the news? I better get a shot. Like, all of that crap is reptilian thinking. It's survival, desperation, fear of death thinking. And you don't think that the people that want to keep us in that fearful lower energy know that and want to continue to keep pumping it over into our heads through fear, through the idea of war, and through the idea of death and destruction? My God, of course they do. And it's so easy because we drop into it very easily, into fear mode, rather than just taking responsibility for our life, our bodies, our minds, our stories, and especially our imagination, where we can create and co-create whatever we want and bring stories of abundance, sovereignty, health, love, and euphoria. Like, bring those words consistently into your realm in a meditative state every day. Like, we can do this, and we've done this. Enough of us have done this, that's why we have ascended. That's why we've surpassed this new world order agenda that is imploding in front of our eyes. And all we really have to do now is allow that. I didn't even go to the rally yesterday. That's the first time this year, I think.
Oh.
And I just didn't feel it anymore. I walked past the Saddle Dome where they had a hockey game on, and I saw one human out of thousands flooding into the stadium, putting on a diaper on his face. One. The rest of them were going into that hockey game. They were going in there just in droves. Not a child, not an adult, nothing with this thing on their face. So why not see that now? See that happening and observe that and say, wow, we've got this. And those that encouraged that ridiculousness in the past, they'll have to deal with their own karma. There's nothing we can do with them. I blamed them, and I was in that game myself for the last 2 years. But now it's like, okay, let them deal with what they thought about. Let them deal with their imagination, what they imagined. While I deal with my imagination and what I feel is happening and know is happening. And that is a release of abundance, a release of health again, an utter complete rejuvenation and ascension, a transition on an individual level and on a collective level. Because even myself, like, here's a little interlinking story. The end of February, when this so-called war started in the Ukraine and everything else, I said, okay, let it happen. And I let myself be sick. And we started off privately before the show talking about this. And like you said, William, well, sometimes you have to just allow a cold, whatever word you want to put on it. I like to use the word a cleansing of the system, but allow that peacefully to happen. I deliberately continued throughout the last 2 weeks to get up and go outside, do some exercises, and walk, as I always do, which is not strenuous for me. It's just simply natural anymore for me to do that. So by doing that, nothing got lodged in my lungs or anything. Am I still coughing a little bit once in a while? Of course, but it's expelling that poison, and I'm allowing my body to do it. Have I slowed down? Yes. I'll say I have. And have I allowed it to happen? Just like we're allowing this disintegration of the whole narrative that had humanity under a spell and had us, and me, I'll admit, trapped into giving my energy to fighting. Did we expose to more people in the world by standing up? Yes. So I'll never regret it. We were advocates. We exposed more truth about what was going on as it was going on. So I can't regret that. But am I going back there anymore now? No, it's done. We've moved past that. And we're quickly moving past any notion that what Russia is doing in the Ukraine is a war. It's not. It's the demolition of the New World Order economic plan, the World Economic Forum, whatever language you want to put on it. That is what is being demolished. And there is some nasty stuff going on, don't get me wrong. Mostly on the side of those clinging to that notion, those clinging to the idea that the Ukraine moved from the breadbasket, the healthy food supplier of a big chunk of Europe and Russia, into this chemical bullshit, you know, pumping the whole Western story of chemicals and inputs into the food system. My God, it's so obvious that that's where we got caught into, that corporate mentality that lost the caring for the human being, the nurturing, healthy aspect of our food and our health and our remedies, rather than pharmacy and chemicals in our food system. All of that was going on in the Ukraine. It's stopping now. And it's stopping because these military people in the world, and I said this months ago or last year already, they have gotten together and woke up and said, we're not going to be dogs of war to this globalist agenda anymore. We're not fighting for someone who is simply just genociding society by continuing and again offering us what we asked for. So I'm not blaming them now. I'm saying we wanted more. We wanted more money from chemicals related crap. We asked for it, and they just happily gave it to us to keep us fighting and to keep us off track from our beautiful, wonderful imagination that has the capacity to imagine a world of abundance where food and chemicals are not needed in the food supply, where chemicals are not needed to heal our bodies, where all we have is within fasting and therapies and remedies, natural remedies. All of that is available to us. Just imagine it.
Randall, can you believe it? We're at the end of the show.
That's fine.
We covered a lot of ground there, my good man.
Well, I hope it was, helpful to some people, because it's, that's what we're here for, is to expose as much as we can of our story from the I am consciousness, which is love, which is compassion, which is peace, harmony, love, abundance, freedom, and euphoria. It's all of it.
I'm going to add one more word in there. I'm going to add the word imagination in there too.
Thank you, William. Yeah, it's good. I mean, I'm ready to move on with my day and get back at the people that I deal with. And that's what we all can do. Bring the love, bring the peace and harmony to whatever it is that you do. My job's no different than anybody else's. Just because I'm involved with royal family members, trying to keep them calm, out of fear, in this loving notion, remembering that they're here for humanity, not for some corporate agenda. That's my job. So I'll keep doing my job. Everyone needs to just keep doing theirs. We've got this.
Basically, what I'm getting is just hold an image, just hold a picture of what it is that you do want. Let go of the things you don't want.
You betcha, brother. I mean, Martin McNichol said it the other day. It's like co-create with thoughts of freedom and peace, and observe the manifestations that come from the outer that adhere to anything like bondage. So it's, you know, it's those kind of simple things where you're imagining, you're co-creating. So why not co-create something good?
Sounds good to me, Randall. You want to give us one final blessing just to wrap up the show?
Peace, harmony, love, abundance, and freedom for everyone and everything every day on our minds. We love you guys. Love you, William.
Love you lots. Thanks, Randall. Have a good week, everybody.
Isn't too hard to see. It's nothing better. It isn't too hard to see. There's nothing better. It's nothing better.